All right, hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Tonight is Tuesday, September 14th, 2021. This is your evening tropical update. Well, I apologize for not having it in a video yesterday evening when Nicholas did make landfall, didn't get around to it. But over on the page, on Redbeard's weather page, we were doing some updates. So if you ever don't see me on YouTube, just head on over to the page and probably be posting something. But tonight we are still tracking Nicholas now well ashore and is still producing very heavy rain across the Gulf Coast region. We have Invest 96L here in the Bahamas that's trying to get itself going. And then we also have Invest 95L moving off the coast of Africa. This will be traveling westward for the next several days. So we're going to hit 95, 96L a good bit, but we'll start with Nicholas. And our system here did come ashore last night near Matagorda, Texas. Maximum sustained winds were 75 miles an hour. It was a Category 1 hurricane. Wind gusts up to 95 miles an hour were reported around the region. Storm surge about 5, 6 feet, it sounds like. And some localized wind damage, no doubt, and damage was reported in the region. And since then, the system has moved ashore. Heavy rainfall did overspread Texas last night, but the general path of the storm kind of shifted a little bit more to the east. And as we kind of thought, all that upper level wind is kind of pushing a lot of the convection on Nicholas over to the east. So what's kind of happened is the extreme rain threat for Texas has kind of come down, as a lot of Texas is actually mostly dry tonight with dry air coming in on the backside of Nicholas, but a lot more west or eastward. The rainfall totals and stuff have shifted eastward. Now we're talking about not only Louisiana, but coastal Mississippi, coastal Alabama, and even parts of western Florida getting in on the action. So we can see here as our radar and satellite imagery updates tonight, center of Nicholas right here near the border of western Louisiana and Texas, but all the rainfall out ahead of it, almost nothing back behind. It's already cleared out in Houston. It's not really going to pick up anymore. And all this rainfall is off to the east. You can see a lot of heavy thunderstorms starting to come ashore in coastal Alabama, western Florida, and this pattern is going to continue for the next several days as we have a lot of Weather Prediction Center outlooks up. The day one outlook still has a high risk of excessive rainfall for southwest Louisiana, a moderate outlook for most of the rest of the state tonight, and tomorrow a moderate outlook encompasses most of central and eastern Louisiana and all the way through Mississippi and Alabama. Anywhere in red is still a pretty high risk of excessive rainfall, flash flooding, and the whatnot. It's a pretty serious event, especially because you've already had a very wet summer in this region, and you just had Ida about 2 weeks ago. Likely rivers, reservoirs, things that are still full. Your soil moisture is still high, so you've got a good chance that a lot more flooding potential, is there. So definitely want to keep a close eye on that. Weather Prediction Center's rainfall totals throughout the start of Friday still showing a large 6 to 10 inch sort of rainfall threat along the coast, and then about 4 to 8 inches elsewhere. But a lot of rainfall still to come is the bottom line, and this is going to be a slow, persistent pattern. The Hurricane Center does not think Nicholas is going to go anywhere. I don't have the cone up. We can pull it up just real quick to show you. It is expected to dissipate. It's no longer a wind or surge threat, but it is going to just kind of crawl through tomorrow. I mean, it's going to be a tropical depression tomorrow afternoon, and it may not dissipate until tomorrow evening over Louisiana, but it's going to be in no hurry over the next couple of days. And the overall broad moisture pattern this leaves behind, the low levels out of the southwest, a lot of just general tropical moisture is going to sit over this region for the next several days. So please keep that in mind. Keep those flooding outlooks in mind. And, if I go through the weekend, you can see the rainfall, comes more into Florida and Georgia as that general afternoon thunderstorm activity is going to be ramped up pretty high even through the weekend. So keep an eye on that down here in the southeast, and don't drive through flooded roadways and all that. It's definitely not the best idea. But all right, we go ahead and go to our two invests. We'll start with 96L here in the Bahamas. Hurricane Center up to a 70% chance this to develop, 50% in the next couple of days. Evening satellite presentation, nothing super impressive yet, but we do have a pretty decent cluster of thunderstorms, something we didn't really have yesterday. The thunderstorm activities picked up. One of the first check marks you see. This will have an overnight convective maximum to really kind of keep that thunderstorm activity going, get that pressure lowering, and you'll gradually see a circulation center probably focus up in this region. Now, this is going to generally drift off to the northwest over the next couple of days, but then it should begin to turn back to the northeast. It's going to be guided by overall high pressure here out over Bermuda in the southwest, the central Atlantic, and this is going to generally guide the storm in some kind of motion like this. Now, as far as this potential to organize, one of the things that's inhibiting it right now is an upper trough. You have strong high over the Gulf of Mexico. You see the very robust upper level outflow in that region, and then you have this trough kind of dug in next to it underneath what is a second high over here. So your storm is kind of stuck in a pretty chaotic environment, and the overall environmental inhibitors, a lot of it's going to come from wind shear in the short term. Now, the GFS still shows this thing developing, but doesn't really do it super impressively. You have is basically a broad low forming. You can see the trough axis here, real sharp axis by tonight, which is more or less what it is right now. And then it shows, some sort of low trying to form off the coast of Florida, Georgia, even the Carolinas by tomorrow morning. And then, by tomorrow afternoon, you've got this broad low here near the Carolinas, kind of grazing the Outer Banks. Could see some adverse weather in this region, mostly rainfall and some gusty winds. And then by Friday, Saturday, it kind of works it up off the coast where it sort of begins to develop it more, but it never really shows a really good organized tropical cyclone. It kind of shows this big broad sort of mess. And European, mostly in the same boat. It's a little slower with the overall development of the storm. Wednesday, again, European has basically a sharp trough axis in the mid levels, and then by Thursday, kind of has that broad low again off the coast of South and North Carolina. Friday it actually has a little bit more organized storm, but it pushes it pretty much over the Outer Banks, and then Saturday, Sunday it turns it offshore and has it just kind of hanging out over that region throughout the weekend. So it looks like anything does form out of this is going to be pretty broad, pretty disorganized. It looks like the North Carolina region is the most likely for an impact. The evening update does kind of draw the hatchings right about along the Outer Banks coast, but this isn't really meant to be a track. This is kind of just shows a general area of formation, but there's not really meant to be like an actual track predictor. It just kind of gives you a general idea of whatever they're talking about, maybe drifting or moving. So it's a little too early to tell for sure if we're going to get any direct impacts out of this. What we do know is the upper level outflow and the upper level pattern is going to be pretty chaotic for this. So it looks like that's going to kind of inhibit it. You go into Wednesday and Thursday, that trough sort of fills in, but you don't have a lot of room in the atmosphere. You've got strong upper winds here, you got strong upper winds here, you got a little high here, a little bit of outflow potential, but this is very chaotic. This is not a very good place for a storm to try to really blow up, and you're not going to get like a big hurricane off the coast or anything, but could still form into some kind of disorganized or broad, sloppy tropical depression, tropical storm throughout the middle of this week to late week. So we will keep a close eye on that. And computer model guidance does generally suggest that it will become a tropical storm, but the overall computer model guidance from the global models, GFS Euro, aren't very impressed with it. Euro, not very impressed at all, and GFS ensembles are pretty uniform that something will form, but they're also pretty uniform in it staying offshore and also being fairly weak, at least towards the end of the forecast period where it picks up once it's away from land. So we'll keep an eye on it, but right now, not an impressive or serious threat, it appears, to the eastern U.S. But, folks in the Carolinas, especially North Carolina, Outer Banks, keep an eye on it because, if it does kind of surprise us, you might get some, surprising conditions later this week. So worth keeping an eye on. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap up with 95L off the coast of Africa, our big player here, moving off. Well, it's over here actually. This is our next wave moving off behind it. That's also got 20% marking for the next 5 days, but we're not going to worry about that in the short term. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But our wave here leaving Africa tonight, a little bit more starting to get there. You got a kind of a elongated, not very strong rotation yet, but something kind of getting itself going here. Large overall envelope with the storm, pretty good size, a pretty good size moisture envelope. So this is definitely going to develop, likely on the more northern end, kind of where you see some of this mid-level rotation right here. It's not very strong, but you'll have a tropical depression generally try to spin up off of this, and I would imagine tomorrow night, I would say that's probably when you'll start to see some buzz that this is going to be a tropical depression sooner than later. Again, with storms this far away, there's no hurricane hunters or anything, so you just kind of call them as you see them on satellite. Not there yet, but it looks like it's starting to get itself together. 95L generally is going to enjoy favorable conditions for the next couple of days, and it's going to just move westward as a lot of these storms do in this region. No surprises here. The GFS, I back it up a little bit. You can see kind of has this broad envelope here tonight south of the Cabo Verde Islands, and then by tomorrow you see that little more organization on the more northern end of this envelope forms, and that's probably when you have a tropical depression by Wednesday night to early Thursday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it just kind of rolls along, and then by Sunday, Monday, it's in the vicinity of the Antilles. Now this is where the fork in the road comes for 95L. Well, we have two things going on. Number one, we have the system we just talked about. Our friend of the Bahamas goes up offshore and then kind of comes off the coast of New England. Now, this is going to try to create a weakness in the high pressure ridge that's guiding the storms in the Atlantic. Now, we're looking at the 850 millibars. It's kind of low level for what the steering flow would be, but it illustrates the idea very well of you see this upper trough here kind of associated with our system breaking a hole in the high pressure, because what this would look like if this wasn't here was you kind of have one bigger high pressure cell, and instead you've got this kind of break in it, and this is what 95L wants to try to see to turn northward. Now, it's very possible the system sees that break, turns north, follows us out to sea, and it's just no big deal. It's nothing to worry about. But there's another kink in the flow here, and that is there's going to be a strong upper trough developing in this region this weekend. So this is valid on late on Saturday. Is you have a high pressure or high cell over here in the Western Atlantic, and you have the strong tropical upper tropospheric trough, or what we call a TUT, forming here in the Central Atlantic. And our system that we're talking about here, 95L or African wave, it leaves, it comes across. It's here on Saturday, and it's going to hit this TUT. Now, this interaction is important. Does the TUT destroy our storm? Does our storm strong enough to kind of resist the TUT's influence? Is the TUT even that far south to influence it? The strength of the storm in this region will help to determine if it wants to begin to turn north or if it wants to stay low and go south. The stronger it is, by rule of thumb, it would be more likely to turn north, more likely to want to follow this break in the high pressure and move north. If it's weak or it gets destroyed out here, it's not likely to follow this thing out to sea. It's likely instead to just drift into the, Antilles, the Caribbean, the Bahamas, what have you. And then, maybe down the road it would develop, maybe it won't from there. But the bottom line is the storm's going to get to the Antilles by the weekend, and then we're going to have a fork in the road. That's all we know now. It's just too early to say, oh, it's definitely going out to sea, or oh, God, it's coming right for us. We don't know that yet. I would say that if I had to lean towards a solution, I would say probably out to sea is a decent call. Um, but it is far too early to say that. And again, it's not even going to be at the fork in the road until Sunday, and that would probably be another 3, 4, 5 days at least before it was significantly threatening the U.S. if it were to at all. So it's way too early to be calling a whole lot on this. Models generally agree westward for the next several days, and then these models aren't going to go out past about 5, 6 days. The Euro and GFS ensembles are, again, mixed. The GFS shows some stronger solutions turning out and northward. Again, notice how these are the brighter colors and getting a stronger storm on the northern end of this envelope solution, which is where we see the storm turning northward, moving towards Bermuda, out to sea, no big deal, kind of what Larry did. And then we have a lot of solutions that are to the south, and these are all mostly the weaker solutions you see going into the Caribbean, basically going low and, fast and low, just staying moving to the west. And then the ones in the middle are the ones that are kind of in the middle on intensity. So it represents a vast array of outcomes, and it's just really too early to determine what threat may or may not be, not only to the Caribbean but to the U.S. So we're just going to keep watching it, but there's no reason to worry right now. We are several days away from any issues. So that's what I got for you guys tonight on your tropical update. As always, thanks for watching. Have a good one.